Hello, everyone. Today's life lesson focuses on the topic of money, right? So, as I have mentioned in a couple of prior videos, if you're new to listening, I grew up without much money, right? To say it lightly. My first several jobs ended up being under minimum wage and under the table. Of course, back then, the logic that was given to me to get me to work that way made sense because I didn't know any better, right? And YouTube, the internet wasn't really a thing back then. Everyone didn't have access to it, so it was hard for me to be able to know otherwise. Moving to this topic, right? So as I continued to progress throughout my career after the military, after a few other strategic opportunities, I started to notice that I had grown my income, my earning capacity by a tremendous amount, right? And at this time, I did what a lot of people from my background end up doing, which is I started buying a lot of things. Right? Things that I always wanted to have a new car and not buy like a beat up used car. I'm going to buy a new car now. And I always wanted to be able to have the fastest internet speed. So I'm going to pay for the fastest internet speed. I'm going to pay for cable that's fast, or excuse me, that has more channels than what I even watch. I don't even watch TV, but it's just a status. I'm going to have it. Right? And this leads into the topic. Beware of the middle class trap. Now, there have been several economists and advisors over the years talk about if you want to see someone's capacity for success, look at their spending habits, right? Financial success, look at their spending habits. And the general rule of thumb is that poor people buy stuff. So in other words, I have $10 in my pocket, so I'm going to buy this little bottle of seasoning because I want it and I have $10, right? Middle class buy liabilities, right? So the difference between stuff and a liability in this case is I only have, I got a yenny over here, 10 yen coin. So I have 10 yen in my pocket, which is not enough to buy this by itself. But if I finance it, I can pay it off in a couple of months. Usually a better example of this is cars, cell phones, subscription services, all those other things that we end up buying within the middle class, right? Rich people tend to buy assets. They buy things that make them money. It is the opposite of a liability. So again, in middle class, once I got into the middle class, I'd always been taught when I was poor that your car is an asset, that your house is an asset, that all these other things are assets, and they're not. You pay money on them. Unless let's say you buy a duplex and you are renting the other home while you're living in one, and the money that you're making from that pays your mortgage, you're not actually purchasing an asset, right? It's not an asset until you sell it. All right. At that particular time, it's a liability because you have to maintain utilities, insurance, taxes, a mortgage payment, all those other things, right? So with that in mind, the reason I say beware of the middle class trap is because of what I did to myself, and apparently is really common amongst people. I kept looking at every little thing and thinking of it as, hey, I make this much money a month. I can afford an additional $100 for this, or an additional $50 for that, or whatever. And essentially, I nickel and dime myself into pretty substantial debt to the point where my recurring expenses every single month were approximately, I think at that point, it was like $6,700 a month, right? And that was insane. I didn't need $6,700 a month. And a lot of the stuff I didn't even use. Even till this day, right? Some stuff I maintain just to have it. Like I have a Disney Plus, ESPN, Hulu subscription thing because my Amex Platinum card covers it, right? They give me $20 a month or something like that in reimbursement, and it pays for the entire subscription, right? So keeping that in mind, right, there's a couple ways for you to be careful and ensure that you don't get caught up into the curse of the middle class trap. One is to ask yourself, do I really need this? Do I really use it? Is it worth my time? Because you have a double time expense on this. You have the time that you spent earning the money that you had to use to pay for that service. And then you have the time that you will spend utilizing that service. Is it worth your time? Does it actually bring you the joy that you want to have to be happy, right? The next thing is to really be cautious. There's a lot of things that you end up getting that serve like dual purposes. Like for me, at that particular time, I thought I was the coolest thing in the world because I had a whole bunch of premium credit cards. And I realized that the benefits I was getting from card A were almost identical to card B, and I was paying an additional $500 a month for card A. So why not get rid of it, right? Now, when I first went through one of those life disrupting moments when I got really bad into debt and I was dealing with a divorce at the time and everything else, this is what caused me to actually have to stop and look at what I was buying, what I was spending. And at the time, like I was investing in mutual funds and then angry because they would take out such a large cut. It would like 10% off the top of everything. And it felt like I wasn't earning it back quickly enough, and I'd sell my mutual fund back early to be able to cover this other debt. I mean, I made a lot of really bad decisions at this particular time period. But once I got a handle on it, and I reduced my recurring expenses, I started revisiting, do I really need to have new stuff? Like, it's nice to be able to buy a new t-shirt every now and then, right? As opposed to only wearing t-shirts that you got from a charitable donation, like what this one is, right? Most of my clothes are either, Duluth doesn't have it anymore, but it used to have like a lifetime warranty process. So even if you got too fat to fit in your clothes, you could send them back and they would send you a new pair, right? You just had to pay the difference in price from when you bought it. And then freebies that I got, right? It's nice to be able to have a new stylish thing every now and then, but I didn't need it. And it wasn't worth, let's say, an hour of my time, right? At that particular time, I would think of it like, is that worth an hour of work? And that really helped me cut it back. So I advise everyone who's watching this, please take a look at your finances right now and identify just one thing a month, right? One thing a month you don't really need, you don't really use. Like I know people that have gym memberships just to be able to say they have a gym membership. And they are paying, $100 or more a month just to be able to say, well, I'm working on my fitness, but never use it. Or the amount that they use it, all they use it for is to go get on a treadmill, which is definitely not worth it, right? I advise looking at your spends and see what stuff can you cut out. Do one thing a month. Challenge yourself to it. Hey, over the next year, I'm going to cut one thing out of my budget every single month, and then take that same money that you would have been spending on those other things and look at investing it. If your risk tolerance is really low, high yield savings accounts are really valuable again right now. I think two of my separate HYSAs at this point, high yield savings accounts, one is earning 1% and one is earning 1.01%, right? So if you're really hyper conservative and worried about the volatility of the markets right now, invest in that. If you're not really concerned about the volatility of the markets, look into some of the different trading apps such as Webull and do a little bit of research online. YouTube has a ton of videos on how to purchase. Right now, the market is very low and it has been really catastrophic for a lot of people. But what that means is you have a good opportunity of getting into the market right now and taking advantage of that. As history has shown, every time the markets have dropped down like this, they have rebounded up substantially. So anyways, to recap, please be careful of the middle class trap. What ends up happening is that your liabilities will end up exceeding your earned income. And just because it's only $10 here, $10 there, doesn't mean that you can actually afford it, because that's $10 added 10 times across for all the other things that you purchased and all the other things that you subscribe to. So anyways, I hope this advice is helpful, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you.